All right, everyone, let me just say this. Aside from the assault and like sexual impropriety allegations, I'm not a Roy Moore fan. Some people probably think that I am because he'll go Trumpite or something. No, on a personal level, he's an evangelocon. My natural status is not defense of evangelo-conservatives. In fact, I virulently hate them for the most part because they say fucking moronic shit. Talk about Jesus should be the vice president, Jesus is the reason for the season, therefore it would be like a sin if a president were to say like, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays would be a big problem for them. They look at the Starbucks cups and they see like devils on them or witches, and it's just, come on, people. You can't really complain about certain other ass-backwards religions if you're going to believe these things. I'm just going to say that. It comes off as hypocritical, really gives a lot of fodder, by the way, to your ideological enemies. People like Roy Moore tend to do that. But I have to defend him here because CNN attempted to smear him completely. He gave, apparently, a little interview years ago, where we're talking 2011, I think, is the era. So it's not exactly recent. Where he said, oh yeah, basically there are problems with some of the amendments after the 10th. Now he's referring specifically to amendments that have been used in court decisions specifically to expand federal power and abuse the states, as well as to deprive people of the other rights of the first 10 amendments, like the right to privacy, including the right of free religion, where the government can seep in. The federal government is trying basically to enslave people. It's doing stupid shit. It's basically the argument that was made at the time, we're talking, Civil War era, is essentially, well, these states are being abusive, and also they're, violating the Constitution by trying to form their own countries. We're going to go stop this bullshit. And then the federal government steps in, consolidates more power, therefore, afterwards, you get basically the abolition of slavery is then used to abuse the states of their other rights, including states that never participated in the Civil War as far as seceding or having slaves or anything. That's the point he was trying to make. He's not suggesting a restoration of slavery. CNN leaves that out entirely. Again, they take a bunch of his words out of context and make it sound like, oh, he's a virulent bigot. And by the way, can I point something out? I'm not sure if the Democrats fully understand this. This is a race in Alabama. It's a red state. Its natural status is red, as in Republicans, so-called conservatives, win more often than not in a state like Alabama. If you lose this race, as polling it shows more and more is probably going to happen, you've got Emerson and a bunch of other polling firms that, remember, in the last few races so far this year, they've been more or less on the mark, no real over or underestimation. The vast majority of them agree Moore is ahead by 3 or 4 points. You are probably going to lose this race. You have spent months declaring him to be a child-molesting Nazi, and yet he's probably still going to win. What does it say about the Democrats and your organizational abilities, your fundraising apparatus, your platform, as though there is no platform? This is the problem. You're going to keep having this happen until you build one. You've got to get off of the moral wedge, like the side issue stuff that you've been trying to deploy. You've been trying it against Trump. It's not working. You've been, you know how you can tell when Trump's approval is up in the polls? The media doesn't talk about polling for a while. Really, I'm being totally serious. I've noticed that pattern. Meanwhile, some of the people at Fox will tout, like Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson will come out and talk about nothing but polls if he's up by a half a point. In all honesty, to tell the truth. Roy Moore is an evangelocon. I'm sitting here as someone who, on any religious or moral issue, I tend to lean left. And I gotta defend the poor sap because he's being attacked by CNN. They're not attacking him for something legitimate. They're not attacking him for actual comments. They're attacking him for in a roundabout way stuff that they consider him to have alluded to. Oh, he's talking about the problematic nature of the application of amendments after the 10th. Aha, it means the abolition of slavery too. Roy Moore wants to restore slavery. See, he hates black people. But that's not actually what he said. It's simply not. So you've got, again, you've supposedly got an extreme bigot, an extreme sexual pervert, who is probably going to beat the Democrat. And you've been touting how great and powerful this particular Democrat is. Oh, he was prosecuting evildoers, stopping murderers, what a wonderful guy. You're making the same mistake you made with Hillary. You talked about how perfect she was, and how her opponent was basically, you could almost ignore him because you cast him off as so pure evil, so one-dimensionally unsound and unfit for that office, and he still wins. Partially, again, because you didn't realize the differential between demographics in the states. People aren't realizing the difference between Alabama and New York City, I think. It's not going to affect... Obviously, calling him a pervert hasn't affected the metrics of the race. It obviously hasn't, partially because it's just allegation. There's no proof. When they try to compare this to Franken, again, the Republicans need to take fucking watch this video. Some White House staffer, some congressional staffer needs to get some balls and go up and say, hey, you know, there are people on YouTube and in the independent media who know what they're talking about. Let's take their advice. All you got to do is come out before the American people and say, well, yeah, you know, we understand what the Democrats are saying. But there's a big difference between just allegations and allegations backed up by proof, like a congressional settlement a la Conyers. Also Farenthold. Fucking force him to resign or expel him. Get rid of him before it blows up in your face, Republicans. Otherwise, Democrats will be focusing on that one next. And that'll be a good thing, actually, because, yeah, he should be gone. Franken. You got a friggin' picture of Al Franken groping somebody. How the hell does that have anything in common with, hey, oh, so-and-so was being creepy to me years ago. So-and-so said a perverted thing. So-and-so signed my yearbook, as though that's proof of anything. Everything else that was written below it was forged. That doesn't exactly help the case anyway. His approval will probably rise a point before the election tomorrow. I think voting is held tomorrow. If the polls are remotely right, or even if they oversample Roy Moore by a couple points, he wins. Then you've got turnout. Is this really going to drive the same amount of outrage that in other races, occasionally here in the last year, have actually helped the Democrats? People were outraged and so there was higher Democratic turnout. I'm not so sure that it does. Because you got to realize most of the people that have strong feelings about this don't even appear to be in Alabama. So they can affect it on social media. By the way, there's the actual effect of trolling and propaganda and so forth on elections. It comes from other parts of the same country disproportionately, as opposed to Russia. But I think Roy Moore is likely to win. Now, it's not certain. It could be that the polls are oversampling the Republicans now. It's possible. Why not? They've done that before. They certainly did in 2012. There were polls that were cherry-picked at the time that oversampled Romney by 2-3 points. That's why he lost the election. Karl Rove was totally astonished at the time. Any sane person would have told you that the preponderance of evidence was, hey, yeah, these 3 or 4 polls he's using show, you know, Romney wins like this state and that state. Maybe he pulls it over 170. Several dozen of the polling firms, and indeed the aggregate as a total, all show Obama a couple points ahead, with a huge advantage in certain states that he's considering competitive. It's the same in reverse as what happened in the last election. The polls systemically undersampled Republicans, whose turnout was higher, giving them the election, especially within the Rust Belt. Flipping a couple states I didn't count on either. He did better than I expected, Trump, that is. Roy Moore is likely, he's got a better than 50-50 chance here. And for CNN to, at the 11th hour, run a smear piece, which they know, in no realm of reality was this particular article up to even their watered-down so-called journalistic standards. Focus on what he actually said or what he's actually done, not, hey, you know, half a decade ago, Roy Moore suggested that some of the newer amendments had become problematic because the courts kept construing them to deny rights to people and to states and giving those rights to the federal government instead. That's, in a nutshell, that's what he's saying. He's not saying, oh, bring back slavery. Yeah, we're going to whip these people of color into shape down here in Alabama. That's not what he's saying. He's not walking around like a walking minstrel show. And they've done this twice before. It's not just with this comment either. And they do it to Trump every day. Trump comes out and says, hey, you know, I like Coca-Cola. They say Trump says he hates Pepsi and wishes that he could make all Pepsi workers unemployed. You know it to be true. Even some of you on the left at this point, I know that you can see it. You may not care much because you think that Trump's evil, but why do you think Trump's evil? It's because of that same kind of reporting. You got to get off the circular reasoning. And the Republicans need to go on the offensive. They can't just sit there and sort of mumble and shuffle their feet and pretend that this isn't an issue. It's good. Fair and hold will become an issue. Their lack of self-defense because they've been gulled by the fact that we're talking about sexual abuse allegations is going to destroy them. They probably do get fucked if they refuse to defend themselves. But there's a perfectly adequate way to do it. All you have to do is point out the difference beyond similarity between these different allegations. And there is a big fucking difference. There's a big difference between, hey, Trump raped me 20 years ago, and hey, here's a picture of Al Franken assaulting me. There's a big difference between, I allege that Roy Moore is perverted, and hey, Conyers was allegedly a pervert, fired someone after being perverted, and then settled a case, and we know it because we got the fucking settlement. That's the difference. But nobody wants to talk about that. They want to pretend that all of these allegations are the same. It's like early on, you could see there were like 4 totally different layers of types of allegations a person could be subjected to. Someone like Louis C.K., they're not even alleging civil wrongdoing. And he's basically, he said, oh, I'm sorry, and he gets fired from a bunch of shit. He barely even did anything wrong. All he was doing was being pervy. He wasn't assaulting anyone, he didn't drug anyone, he didn't rape anyone, he didn't sexually assault anyone, he's just being perverted. He's being a grubby dude, and he suffers for it. To K, it's just an allegation of sexual assault, but there's no further evidence. There is a difference between that kind of case or a Roy Moore or a Trump about whom there is no specific physical evidence of any kind. There's a difference between that and Franken and Conyers in specific. And maybe then as well someone like Spacey who basically comes out apologizing and admits in part to what went on. There's a difference. Farenthold should be out. It's good that Franken and Conyers, who are, you know, more or less provably perverted, it's good that they're gone. We've got no proof in these other cases. And that's the case for Democrats too. Look, are you indicating, since you want Trump to resign based solely on allegations, and Roy Moore to withdraw or be expelled if he's elected based solely on allegations without any further corroboration, if 3 or 4 people were to come out tomorrow and say, insert Democrat, Elizabeth Warren tried to rape me up the ass. She drugged me and tried to rape me in one of her offices. If a couple of her staffers, disgruntled people who she fired for being inept, were to do it, would you call for her resignation? Would you call for her resignation? No, I don't think you would. Or Gillibrand, what if it was a female instead of a male? Would you be so quick to jump to, hey, this person, well, we can't be blaming the victim here. No, you would assume that they were the victim of a smear campaign. Why is this not something? Is it because Trump talks openly about the fact that he likes to be piggish? The fact that he likes to be piggish with adult models does not make him a rapist. The fact that Roy Moore liked to date 18-year-olds when he was already in his 30s doesn't make him a pedophile. It makes him creepy. Being creepy is not against the law. It's not a reason to expel somebody from Congress. Now, if he were to settle, if somebody takes up a civil suit against one of these people accusing him, says, well, yeah, I'm going to court with this, and he settles it, then that might be a reason to expect him to resign. Because it's basically an admission, yeah, at least part of this is true. I really don't want everything coming to light in a court. Streisand effect and all. I'm just going to settle it. Here, take the $100,000. Go, please, get away from me. And he'd have to pay, you know, pay through the nose for it. Trump, same thing. Yeah, let me know when there's something beyond allegation, please. And then, trust me, if you had evidence that a sitting president had done something illegally perverted, like he had sexually assaulted somebody in the White House or something, I would call for his resignation too. Absolutely. It's like you look back, there have been a laundry list of presidents who have done, in some cases, non-consensual sexual things, by the way, and I can think of at least 4 Democrats in the last 100 years that fall into it. FDR, he was banging at least one of his secretaries, probably multiple staffers on the side. You know, significant sexual impropriety. JFK fucked everything that moved. He probably also did it while the other party was unable to consent technically because they were drunk and on cocaine. He probably was too, but, you know, that's the way it works. LBJ used to flash his cock at people, at dignitaries, staffers, security guards, his secretary, everybody, the press. He used to expose himself on a fairly regular basis. It became legend. And also, he had apparently a big dick. So, like, some of the people probably didn't mind, because they're like, wow, you know, our president's really a man. That was the whole point. It was like a control thing with him. And then Bubba Bill, of course. On the Republican side, I can think of plenty of ineptitude, but I can't think of nearly as many actual sexual scandals, come to think of it. Like the shittiest Republican in the last 100 years, George W., because George W. was totally inept and crushed the country. I'd say, by the way, that's worse than most of the allegations against some of these people. You know, and when he fucks up, he ruins 500,000 lives overseas and then millions and millions here. As far as Bubba Bill getting sucked off by Monica Lewinsky, that didn't even become a problem until he committed perjury in front of Congress. And now the Democrats have thrown him under the bus. When are you going to talk about JFK, LBJ, and FDR? When are you going to talk about the three of them sexually assaulting and harassing people on a regular basis? And having affairs constantly and using drugs while doing it. And therefore, in a statutory sense, raping people. Because, of course, you know, most of JFK's lays, they're probably 3 sheets to the wind. It probably didn't take him long to seduce them, but then once they were seduced, trust me, there was some wine being... There was definitely some champagne involved. He liked to party it up. He didn't even sleep in the same bedroom as his wife. What do you think he was doing in the other bedroom at the time? Is a never-ending, rotating bevy of babes, and that's how he treated them. He didn't treat women like his equals. When are you going to point that shit out? Yeah, hypocrites. My ass. Roy Moore will probably win. It'll be kind of funny when he wins. I don't have any specific proof he's even a pervert. I only have specific proof that he comes off as creepy. Well, again, we're talking about years ago, number one. We're talking about non-criminal behavior in, I think, 5 of the allegations, number 2. And number 3, there's no further proof. What am I supposed to do? Expect the dude, his life should be over? Now, look, it's the same as when the media or some person calls you a Nazi. The fact that they allege you to be a fascist or a racist doesn't make you one. You know, you should give the person... Now, have they done anything that indicates a high likelihood that you're a Nazi? Do they have a swastika on their forehead? Do they say 1488 every day? Do they have copies of Mein Kampf behind them when they make videos and they sort of chuckle? Okay, maybe that's further evidence, but just saying, well, the person's a Nazi, the person believes in fascism. Nope, not how it works. That's you're literally like your opinion, man. So I'm going to give these people the benefit of the doubt. It's gotten to the point. I think enough is enough. Enough is enough, because at this point there are going to be people who are simply disgruntled in a political or celebrity sense that are going to lash out at their former employers and try to get them fired by saying, hey, you know, I was harassed or sexually assaulted. It's not victim blaming to point that out, because if that's actually the case, then the victim isn't the claimant. Well, you're victim blaming if you're saying that the other person should unilaterally be fired from everything they did. And again, it's different when you have a Cosby where you got like, what, 60, 70 women now? It's a never shrinking supply of people who said Cosby did stuff. And the allegations are worse. The worst allegations generally against Trump are, hey, he grabbed my ass or wolf whistled at me. It's a little bit different than what Cosby was doing anywhere, or Weinstein. Those are still the big two. Oddly enough, on the right and left, Cosby was a lifeline, I think a Reaganite Republican now, wasn't he? Now he's demented. I don't think he knows what he believes in anymore. But Roy Moore will probably win. These allegations are just that, at this point, still allegations. And then you've got these fucking smear pieces. This is shittier than the allegations. At least there you have other people in good faith, I guess, claiming, yeah, Roy Moore did something wrong. In this case, you've got something being taken and warped all out of context and used as an attack on him because I guess they ran out of true ideological fodder. And for them to do this within, 48 hours of the voting, it's kind of obvious what CNN is hoping to accomplish here. Let's not get the thought that they're unbiased, because they're certainly not. That's about all. Peace out.